What's up, folks? It's your boy Coach Ty back at you with another one, and today we've got our ab body part guide. As usual, anatomy, volume, and my favorite exercises. So let's get straight to it. Here we go. Okay, here we go, straight to the anatomy. First, I should clarify, we're talking about the rectus abdominis in this video. Particularly, that's the muscle on the superficial layer of the abs. You have more muscles behind your rectus abdominis, but when people say ab training or I want to get abs, they're typically referring to the rectus abdominis. The rectus abdominis is two flat parallel muscles separated by the linea alba. The linea alba is connective tissue, essentially. You're watching this video, so I'm sure you're looking for, how to get abs. So I should make sure to clarify on the fact that you already have abs. One, everybody has abs. If you didn't have abs, you wouldn't be able to stand upright. Having abs, quote unquote, is a matter of your body fat percentage. If you have too high of a body fat percentage, which for men is typically we'll say 10 to 12, and for ladies more like 14 or 15%, if it's above those numbers, then doing ab training is not going to help with what you're looking for. Essentially, what you really want to be doing is revealing your abs, because again, they're already there. They're just underneath a layer of body fat. So I always would recommend to clients during my personal training days, make sure you get to a low enough body fat percentage before you really start focusing on ab training. The rectus abdominis hypertrophies or grows just like any other muscle does. If you do extensive ab training for many years, your abs can hypertrophy to the point where you have what almost looks like, some people call it the Ninja Turtle look, where you have a rounded belly with abs, because your abs are so large that they've pressed forward. And that's not really the look that most people are going for. For the most part, people want their waist to be as small as possible and to have ripped abs and obliques. So again, focus on your body fat percentage first. If you get to a lean body fat percentage and you don't like the way your abs look, you feel like you could use some more definition, then start focusing on ab training. All right, back to our functions. Our primary function is flexion of the trunk, basically flexing your spine, so rounding your spine. Now, again, under most circumstances, I would warn you against flexing your spine. However, depending on where the resistance is and the exercise that you're doing, it's not really the worst thing. If you're performing a deadlift and you flex your spine, very bad. If you're performing a crunch and flex your spine, not the worst thing in the world. That leads me to another commonly discussed thing in regards to ab training, which is, are crunches bad for your spine? There's actually some research behind this, and long story short, the answer seems to be no. Function number 2, tensing the anterior wall of the abdomen against pressure or resistance. Anterior means front of the body, so think anterior delt, front of the body, and assisting in compressing the contents of the abdomen. So this makes the abs a little bit different than most of your other muscles in that they also resist movement. Unlike your, let's say, biceps and triceps, they only induce movement. And while the abs flex the trunk, so they induce movement as well, they also help resist movement. This is to help protect your spine, the contents of your abdomen, which for obvious reasons are extremely important. Also to help keep you upright for long periods of time. Because of our abs, obliques, and spinal erectors, we're able to stay upright, unlike the majority of other mammals. The abs also work on posterior pelvic tilt along with the other abdominal muscles. And finally, as I was saying a second ago, they play a role in core stability. Let me read this from physiopedia.com because I think they put this flawlessly. The core muscles include the rectus abdominis, transversus abdominis, erector spinae, and obliques, which together act like a natural weight belt to protect the lower back from injury. Weak core muscles can predispose persons to spinal problems. So again, think of your abs as a weight belt, keeping everything tight and in line, so to speak, preventing too much movement in any direction. So your abs, again, they flex the trunk, but they also keep you from extending or flexing your spine too far in any direction, just like your obliques keep you from rotating or laterally flexing too far in any one direction because your spine can't handle it. And one note on the research before we move on to the volume recommendation and fiber typing, it does seem like you can preferentially recruit the upper and the lower abs. Movements in which you are drawing your lower body up towards your upper body do seem to preferentially recruit the lower abdomen, while movements where you bring your upper body towards your lower body, like a crunch or sit-up, do seem to preferentially recruit the upper abs. Interestingly enough, I couldn't find very much information on the fiber typing of the rectus abdominis. I imagine it's pretty hard to biopsy those muscles. Probably also extremely painful. Well, all biopsies are extremely painful, but regardless, what I was able to find, it does seem like the rectus abdominis is a slow twitch dominant muscle, which makes sense given that it is a postural muscle. So again, any muscle that needs to keep us upright for long periods of time or keep a particular joint in place for long periods of time will usually be more will usually be more slow twitch dominant. Your calves need to keep you upright, slow twitch. Your posterior delts and mid traps are slow twitch as opposed to the upper traps and front delts, because the posterior delt and the mid trap needs to keep your shoulder blades pulled back, again, to help you stay upright. The rectus abdominis also has to work for long periods of time to keep you upright. So, slow twitch dominant. There is one more detail here that we need to consider. The rectus abdominis and the muscles of your core are active during just about all the exercises that you're doing. They're active during squats, active during chin-ups, pull-ups. If you're doing a Bulgarian split squat, if you are performing a deadlift. Again, because those muscles have to act to compress and stabilize while you're moving, especially when you're performing heavy lifts, overhead presses, deadlifts, squats, body weight movements in which you need to stabilize, chin-ups, pull-ups, so on and so forth. The rectus abdominis is active almost during your entire workout if you're doing all those moves, which you should be doing. So we can count all of that as volume for your abs. So you don't really need to add very much on top. And again, if you're not lean enough, all of this is largely a moot point anyway. Okay, on to our volume recommendation. Now we've got a couple of categories and subcategories of exercises here. We've got one main category in which we are resisting movement or stabilized, so some type of plank variation. And our second category is one in which we are flexing the trunk, crunch or leg raise variation. In our trunk flexion category, we've got two subcategories. As I said earlier, crunch variation, where the upper body is going towards the lower body, and our other subcategory is one in which we're bringing the lower body towards the upper body. Now there's a couple of considerations here, depending on how your abs look or if you're just looking for general hypertrophy of your rectus abdominis. If you're looking for general hypertrophy of your rectus abdominis, then I would rotate week over week between the crunch category and the leg raise category. However, if you're lean enough, and most people, the place where they struggle the most at is the lower abs. I'm in that category, I would say. So if I am performing an ab exercise, I'll typically only do some type of leg raise variation because my upper abs are already plenty developed. For our plank category, you can go anywhere between 20 and 60 seconds. Again, the abs are slow twitch dominant, so we want to err towards those higher numbers. But if you're doing a more difficult variation, like a hollow hold or a long lever plank, which we're going to talk about, then doing more than 30 seconds gets to be pretty challenging. Most people will not be able to do that length of time on those exercises. With our standard forearm and hand planks, going up to 60 seconds gets to be easy relatively quickly. And I'm also gonna discuss with you on how to progress your plank over time. And in our other category, in our trunk flexion category, we wanna keep the reps between 12 and 15. And again, because the abs are so active on so many different movements, we only need to do about 2 to 3 sets of each of these. I would say maximum 2 times per week. Okay, moving on to our exercise selection section, here we go. First up, we've got the forearm or elbow plank. Now this is, if you're a beginner, you're totally new to all this, you're new to resistance training, this is where I would recommend you start. Now again, we're trying to resist movement here. So try not to let your hips start sagging. That's a common form mistake that I see on planks of all sorts. Once you start to fatigue, your spine will begin to hyperextend. Make sure you keep your hips up. And then from there, you would naturally progress to the hand plank. You can also start adding weight onto your forearm or elbow plank, placing a plate on your back. You can do the same thing here. Now, some people actually find the forearm plank a little more challenging than the hand plank. I'm not sure why that's the case, just kind of depends on the person, I imagine. But again, you want to start progressing on your hand plank, throw a plate on your back, and then get into position. Next move. Now this is the long lever forearm plank. The more distance there is between the elbow and the toe, the more difficult this becomes. Again, because you have a long lever instead of a short one. I was struggling to do this even for just 20 seconds. These are very hard. So take your time, add weight on the forearm and hand plank before you progress to this one. And then we have the ultimate plank, the long lever hand plank. Again, because there's so much more distance between your hands and your toes, this is much more challenging. I'd also recommend placing your feet up against something solid so you don't start to slide, because your toes will begin to slide on this exercise. Moving on to our trunk flexion category. First up, we've got a Bosu crunch. Now this is just about the only reason I have ever used a Bosu ball, if I'm being honest. But the nice thing about this is you can get a longer range of motion at the spine, extending and then flexing. And because of where the resistance is, we're not putting a ton of pressure on the lumbar spine. So again, this will not typically lead to lower back issues unless you've already got lower back issues. Next, knee tuck. So this is our variation where we're bringing the lower body towards the upper body, and we're training the lower abs preferentially. Try to pull your knees up as high as you can get them. Now, when you first start doing this exercise, if it's a little too challenging, then just aim to get your legs to parallel with the ground. And then I wanted to do another variation because, again, typically the lower abs are people's problem area or challenging spot. So leg raise, this is a more challenging variation of the knee tuck. Again, when you first start doing this move, just aim to get your legs to parallel with the ground. From there, you can extend the range of motion, and you can also throw a dumbbell between your toes to further progress this exercise. And you've also got the toes to bar exercise, where you bring your toes all the way up to the bar and then curl your spine underneath, so you're flexing your trunk. And that's it. All right, folks, that's it for our ab video. I hope you found that useful. You can find all these exercises over at musclewiki.com. I will also have all of these in a workout for you on musclewiki.com. Go check us out there. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you want to hear from me next, and I will see you with the next one. Deuces.